I still remain Mrs. Usman Halima, also from the Department of Geology and Mining, and I welcome you to yet another week of lecture for week 2 and 3. In this lecture, we are going to be treating the classification of phylum Arthropoda and then evolution of this phylum. There are many classifications as proposed to the phylum Arthropoda. In some literatures, we say the phylum Uniramia, class Uniramia, Trilobita, Chelicerata, and Crustacean. But more recent literatures classify this into 4. We have the Crustacean, we have the class Chelicerata, we have the Myriapoda, and then the Hexapoda. And then considering the Trilobita as an extinct form, and then the Onychophora, as we earlier stated in the first lecture. This is just a diagram or a kind of a framework or an organogram of the different classes with the species, animals. Just a summary of what we'll be treating in this lecture. As I earlier mentioned, there are 4 classes of phylum Arthropoda or arthropod that can be mostly found. This includes the Crustacean, Chelicerata, Myriapoda, and Hexapoda. However, other 2 classes of arthropod can be derived: the Trilobitomorpha, extinct category, and Onychophora. These classes will be discussed briefly with their characteristic. Class Crustacean. This type of class are found in both lands and both land and water. They are parasitic. Depending on their habitat, they respire through trachea and gills, which qualifies the first characteristic, being it both on land and in water. The trachea on land and then the water in gills. The water in the water forms uses gills for their respiration. The head is matched with the thorax, which we earlier mentioned in the last class, referred to as the cephalothorax. This kind of arthropods have 10 appendages and 2 pairs of antennae, which is used for feeling or for sensation. The single carapace covers the entire body. An example is seen in the shrimps or the crabs. This arthropod possesses gonopore and 2 compound eyes, which is used for seeing and still for sensation too. They excrete through antennal glands or the green glands. The larval stage is visible in their life cycle. Examples of these are the prawns, the crabs, the woodlice, the shrimps, etc. Crustacean can further be divided into subcategories, which is the Remipedia, the Brachiopoda, the Branchiopoda, the Maxillopoda, Cephalocarida, Malacostraca, and the Ostracoda. Some of these forms are still living, and most of these are studied, or we study them in the fossil form. The second class of this phylum Arthropoda is the Chelicerata. They are mostly terrestrial, that is, they live on land. Antennae are not present. The body is divided between the cephalothorax and abdomen, that is, segmented into 13 parts. Chelicerata perform respiration through gills or trachea. That is, some can possess gills, what is used for respiration, and others have trachea, which is the organ used for respiration in mostly land forms. They excrete through their Malpighian tubule, possess pair or 8 interior appendages. An example of these are the spiders. The spiders we see presently or nowadays. Chelicerata are divided into 3 subcategories: the Pycnogonida, the Merostomata, and then the Arachnida, which are mostly insects. The Myriapoda, they are primarily land dwellers. Several segments are visible on their body. The head carries 2 simple eye antennae and 2 pairs of jaw. Inside their mouth, a pair of mandibles are visible. Labrum and epistome are present in the upper limb and lower limb. The trachea is their respiratory organ, and Malpighian tubule their excretory organ. They have several legs. An example is the millipedes and then the centipede. It is good to bear in mind that um, some of these species or some of these animals or fossils found in this group of in this class or in this group of Phylum Arthropoda, they are actually poisonous and prone, or they possess a kind of a health effect to humans. Example like this, like the mosquitoes, and then other ones are the bees. Another example is even the spiders. There are poisonous forms of spider, and also the centipede is actually poisonous when it bites, and so on and so forth. So in this group we have some that are not harmful, and then we have the harmful one, thereby causing so many diseases to humans. We have this class this class under Phylum Arthropoda, the Myriapoda, is also subdivided into 4 subcategories: the Chilopsida, the Symphyla, the Porapoda, and then the Diplopoda. We all these subclasses, we try to discuss them or in the summary form, and then just as I stated earlier in the first class, we will try to update and then to keep you posted to the some of these subclasses. Class Hexapoda, they are mostly found on land too, just as the Myriapoda. Their body has 3 segments, that is the head, thorax, and the abdomen. They have a pair of compound eye. The thorax is further divided into 3 parts. The abdomen is divided into 7 segments. They possess 6 appendages. They respire through their book lungs and trachea. Malpighian tube help to excrete or helps in excretion. Example are the cockroach, the mosquitoes, the fly ants, or the wasp, etc. Hexapoda is also, just as the previous listed classes, is divided into 2 subclasses, the Entognata and then the Insecta. Onychophora, as earlier stated, is one of the extinct forms of this phylum. They reside on land. They are smaller in size. Their body is divided into segments, just as the others. The process of excretion takes place through the nephridia. They have a trachea for respiration. Example is the Peripatus, the velvet worm, etc. Onychophora has only 1 class, the Undinicophora. Trilobitomorpha and its characteristics. These are the first arthropod to exist. We earlier stated that this is the extinct form of this phylum Arthropoda. However, they are not extinct. They were abundant during the Paleozoic. Their body was segmented into 3 lobes, 2 lateral and 1 median lobe. The head had a pair of antennae and a compound eye. The central structural differentiation of the body parts was not present. The body is divided into head, thorax, and then the pagina, which is a terminal segment or the body part of annelids. Appendages are biramous, just as we stated, is divided into 2 equal halves, or they are mostly bilaterally symmetrical. That's the general characteristic of the phylum Arthropoda. When we say biramous, each of these pair of appendages is attached to a segment, or one is the mirror image of the other. Example are the plankton, Hynelia meridionalis, and so on and so forth. Trilobita had only 1 single class. The Trilobitomorpha, has only single class, which is the Trilobita. Another thing we didn't mention is this phylum Trilobita. The mode of their growth or the mode of development is through what we refer to as molting. Molting is really or actually a process whereby the body of this arthropod developed by shedding off its old skeleton, or the old outer coverage, which we refer to as the actual coverage, which is made up of the skeletal part, made up of the chitin. They actually shed it, and a new one is grown. That is actually what we refer to as a molting. And this segmentation, in some literatures, we refer to it as what we call the tachmosis or the tachmata, simply put. Evolution of Phylum Arthropoda. Based on some of these features, we say the extant fossil or the extant land fossil or the ancestor of all arthropods, is inferred to have been a nodular organism, which is referred to as with nodular organism covered with by its own sclerite or the armored plate and bearing a pair of biramous appendages. The earliest form of this crustacean dated back to the early Cambrian, and the fossil streams for about 500 million years ago apparently form a tight-knit position across the seabed. Crustaceans are common in the Ordovician and onward. They have remained almost entirely aquatic, probably because they never developed a respiratory system that conserve water. That is during the Ordovician period. Arthropods provide earliest identifiable track fossil of land during the Silurian and the terrestrial from about 450 million years ago. They possess attributes that were easily for life on land, easily adaptive or easily adapt for land. The existing jointed appendages provided protection against desiccation, support against gravity, and means of locomotion that was dependent on water. The earlier forms of this insect fossil in the Devonian, an example is the Rhyniogonata hirsi, dated at 396 to 407 million years ago, but its mandibles are type found only in the winged insect, which suggests that the earliest insect appeared in the Silurian, though later studies show possibly that this species can be a myriapod, not actually an insect. This is just a brief, as I stated light in the class. There is going to be an update, or in the physical contact, more questions and other issues will come up that will probably develop, because this is just a summary or a guide into the course or into the topic of this week. Thank you for listening.